Hello, hello. All right, everybody. Thank you for coming. So let's get started because we have a lot to talk about, a lot longevity. First, most people I think know me here. I'm David Reinprecht. I'm a functional nutritionist, and I also study functional medicine. And I also consider myself as a biohacker, which means I'm doing a lot of crazy stuff on myself to enhance longevity and overall health. The way it started very early. I was about 11 or 12 years old, and that's the time where testosterone's kicking in, you start liking girls. And there was one girl in particular in my class I liked, but I was way too shy to go up to her and say something. So don't ask me why. I was writing a little love note. It wasn't a letter, like a note. But I was still too shy to give it to her, so I was hiding it on the desk. And then, of course, my classmates, exposed me and gave it to her. And at first, she was all happy. Oh, somebody likes me, somebody likes me. And then when she found out it came from me, she came up to me and she goes, "Did you write this?" And I was like, all nervous. I was like, She goes, "Well, if you did, look at you. You're fat. You think I'm going to go with you?" So as you can imagine, at 11 years old, it was a slap in my face. But what's interesting is, at that very moment, it was just so negative, and I could not imagine there was something positive coming out. But now I'm actually so grateful that she did that, because she jump-started an entire career for me. Because from that moment on, I wanted to know everything about nutrition, how to build muscles, how the human body works, how to burn fat. So I think I was reading countless books about dieting. And not just reading it, I tried it out on myself. Because it's one thing if you read it, but it's another thing if you actually try everything out yourself. And I also lost about 20, 25 pounds in about 3 weeks. And but I wanted to know more, And then it was very easy going to college, what topic I'm going to pick, of course, was nutrition. And then from that moment on, it just jump-started, my entire career in that field. And also, the topic today is aging. I had to witness, my grandma, both of them actually, and my grandpa deteriorating, in front of me, because my mom had to take care of them. And it was kind of like shocking to see that, in young age. And I was like, is that going to be me one day? So that created that fear about, aging, getting older. So, and since then, I don't know why, I was always afraid of, getting old. And that also jump-started a career, I guess, if you will, because I wanted to know everything early age on how to slow down the process. I started using eye creams when I was 19 years old, just for preventative reasons. All right, but that's enough about me, just so you know that how I got started in all this. Well, let's get started. So let's talk about our healthcare system. The way it's set up is you need to be sick first before you can get any help. As a matter of fact, if you want to do anything for preventative reasons, most likely your insurance won't even cover it. And I know that firsthand because I tried. Now, the reason why I'm saying that is because we are at a time in history where we can actually say for the first time officially that it's much easier to turn the clock back and slow down the aging process than waiting until you have one of these age-related diseases and then trying to fight it off with drugs and radiation. And let's talk about aging. What is aging? What it feels like, and we all know what it looks like, but what is really happening internally? Like, why do we age? Aging is a loss of information due to entropy. It's a software issue, if you will. And as an analogy, in the same way, if I would tell my friend here a story, and then he repeats the story to another friend, and then that friend repeats the story to another friend, and so on. We know well enough, if it goes through 50 people, there will be some loss of information, of the original information. And our genome, what controls the methylation processes where genes turn on and off, loses its information in a similar way to, understand it better. And then, let's talk about how we measure aging. Well, there's two types of aging and how to measure it. First, we have the chronological age, which is basically it's according time. how many times Earth goes around the sun determines your age. Well, mark my words, according to David Sinclair and all the scientists that are working on that, that will change in the near future, the way we're going to measure aging. It's going to be more like this. We have another way that determines more accurately your real biological age, which is a DNA test. Dr. Horvath, that happened to be from the same country as I am, from Austria, he invented the Horvath clock. And it measures 353 methylation markers in your genome, and also like inflammation, hormones, and telomeres. And it can very accurately tell you your real biological age. As an example, I mean, I'm sure any of you know at least one or two people in their life, let's say is 40 years old, but looks like 50, or is 40 years old and looks like 30. Well, literally, they really are either younger or older, biologically speaking. And I think in the near future, we're going to have some sort of like quick testing with a saliva test or something, if you go for a job interview, on how to determine, your real age. Because imagine if you have 10 applications, the same resume, but the job is mentally and physically, very demanding, now who are you going to pick? Well, I would pick the one that looks the fittest. That's a thing that's going to happen in the near future. Oh yeah, and the Horvath clock is also very accurately determined when you die. Now, I can take your blood today, and I can tell you pretty accurately when you die. And you might think, well, I don't want to know when I die. Well, I think you do, because if I tell you we can do something about it, then I think you would like to know. As an example, let's say, Caroline, let's say you do the blood test and you have 10 years to live, right? So that means with your current lifestyle, until you did the test, around that time, about 10 years, you would, die. But if I tell you, hey, if you do some changes in your life, you can extend the 10 years to 20. Would you like to know? To be around with your children or grandkids, and have more time. Because we are at a time where this is actually possible. It's not science fiction no more. And then, that's important too. There's two types of information in our DNA. 20%, as an analogy, is digital, which means it cannot be changed. But then we found out that 80% is epigenetics. And epigenetics means it responds to nutrition, lifestyle, love, community, like having a positive outlook in life. That literally helps you to extend your lifespan. So what that means that 80% on how fast you want to age, and also that means on how fast you're going to get those age-related diseases, such as heart disease, cancer, dementia, Alzheimer, and so on, is actually in your hands. And yeah, and that's why it's getting interesting. And everything I'm going to show you guys here today from A to Z is what we have currently available, to reverse or slow down the aging process. And before we start with the slideshow, let's talk about the epigenome, which you're going to see a lot more today. Epigenome is, what controls the methylation process, where genes are turning on and off. And that plays a huge role when it comes to aging. As an analogy to understand it better, let's say the epigenome is like a DVD player. And at certain times, this song has to play in that cell, and at other times, this song has to play in this cell. So, but aging is kind of like, scratches on a CD. And we all know that the DVD player has a hard time, reading it, because the laser, has a hard time reading the CD. It might either skip a song or the song might be distorted, right? So how they translate in your genome is the wrong song plays at the wrong time in the wrong cell, and so on. To give you an example, we have seen nerve cells lighting up in the brain, and it shouldn't be there, but stuff like that actually happens, and that is, a loss of information of the methylation process, and that's what happens, in the aging process, and that's also why we get, so many age-related diseases, as we get, older. Right, let's get started with the slideshow. All right, so here you can see, before we start, I want you to get a basic understanding about how everything works on a cellular level. Because if I just tell you, oh, do this, do that, or take that supplement, and you're like, okay, but is it working? So I give you like a brief understanding. So we know that our DNA spits out, creates proteins. Proteins make up our living cells, and then the living cells make up the tissue make up the organs, and then of course the organs make up the human body. Now we're going to talk about DNA, gene, and mutation that plays an important role in aging. And I'm sure everybody knows chromosome, right? I'm sure you've seen online a chromosome like this where the DNA is kind of like, looks like it's trapped inside the chromosome, which is not a real representation and what it really looks like. It's more like this. The chromosome, the entire chromosome is your DNA. So as you can see, as we unwrap it here, and you can see here the histone proteins, it wraps around it. And if you take a closer look from here to here, you can actually see that the entire string that makes up the chromosome is your DNA. So if I would stretch out your DNA, it would be about 6 feet long. To put that in perspective, I'm about 5'10", so it would be even a little taller than myself. And keep in mind, those are microscopic. And the fact that you can elongate them to 6 feet is amazing. Now, if I would stretch out every single DNA in your body, it will go back and forth from Earth to the moon about 8 times. That's how much length we have in our body. And those are microscopic. Now wrap your mind around that. Oh yeah, and by the way, they're also like wrapped around in a certain way, for the methylation processes to occur, which you can see here in a second. All right, here. So here you see another close-up, on your DNA. So if you take a closer look, you can actually see those red balls here, sitting on certain parts of your DNA. These are methyl groups. These are tiny chemicals that get placed at certain parts in your DNA in an early age. Some of them already in the womb, and they're the ones that control the methylation, kind of like what genes has to be turned on and off and silenced and so on. And here you can actually see a close-up on those histone proteins where the DNA wraps around it. And that's why the DNA has so much length, because it's like a spool that goes around it. And here you have a picture. You can actually see a cell with the DNA in there. So you can actually see it's not always, it's not, hello? It's not always, wrapped around, in a certain way. It's also changing, especially when it reads it. And here you see our genome. You have 23 chromosomes from your mom and 23 from your dad, a total of 46. And here, if you take another close-up, here you have the chromosome from your mom and from your dad, right? And if you take a closer look, you can actually see that they're completely identical. And these here, the DNA base pairs, those are nucleotides that keep the DNA together. And we mark them as A, T, and G, and C. And if you take a close look, sometimes you can actually find that there's a slight variation, which is a mutation. But I'll show you a close-up. So this is a close-up. You actually can see the DNA with the nucleotides. You can actually see that A always binds with T, and G always binds with C. Now, as an example, with A, we try to bind with C. As you can see, it's not perfectly fitting. That would be considered a mutation. Now, it could be something very, like, as an example, like having a blue eye or brown eye. I'm sure you've seen people before that have gray patches, on the hair, on the beard. Very something very simple. And some of them could be from generation to generation, and some could be unique to you. But it also depends on where that mutation is placed. Could be something more serious too. All right, and now this is the interesting part. Now we have a basic understanding, but now remember when we said, what causes those scratches on the CD as an analogy, which means what speeds up aging in a human. All right. So first we have the environmental factors: pollutants, toxins, chemicals, pesticides, and heavy metals. Which we get exposed to, pretty much, on a daily basis. If you live in a big city such as Phoenix, you're exposed to pollutants. toxin, chemicals, pesticides, heavy metals we have in our food supply, on our drinking water, even in our cleaning supply, even the makeup you're wearing, the hair gel, the spray, the lotion, the laundry detergent. I mean, you'd be surprised if you would actually take the time and Google those ingredients, those chemicals, and then look them up. You'll be shocked what we put in our body, every day. And then we have radiation, UV radiation from the sun or tanning bed and X-ray. Okay, so I have to say this because I know there's so many people that are afraid of sun. Like they think by the time they walk from the car to the grocery store, they're already aging. Sun is life. Without sun, there wouldn't be no life. So sun actually has a lot of benefits. Now we're talking about like getting sunburned every day. There's a big difference. Actually, if you expose yourself to like the morning sun or the evening sun or sun gazing, it actually helps you, with getting a thicker skin. The process is called hormesis, which means, if you translate it, what doesn't kill you, make it stronger, and you can apply it to many things. We're going to talk about this, more. It's the same way when you microneedle, your skin a little bit, you cause those micro damages, but then the skin has to respond to it, and it's getting thicker and better. So now that means, if you know people that avoid the sun completely, you actually see, if you look at the skin is like super thin. And we need a little bit exposure to the sun also for the methylation processes and also for mitochondrial health to have those benefits. X-ray, yeah, if you can avoid X-ray, I would avoid it at any cost. I know if you go to the dentist for a checkup every 6 months, I get it. I mean, the doctor wants to pay for the machine, but I'm telling you, X-rays cuts through DNA. It causes major DNA damage. And only really do it, if you have to, and also if you go to the airport, try to avoid it as much as you can. And then sleep deprivation. I mean, sleep is so important. It doesn't matter what anti-aging program you're on. If you don't sleep, nothing helps. All the magic happens, when you sleep. It will lower your immune system, and also like the body cannot repair or heal even, from a flu or any kind of sickness or any kind of, damage. So sleep is essential. And now we come back again to methylation, which you're going to hear quite often today. So for the methylation processes to occur, which we just discussed prior, they also need certain, vitamins. So as an example, the B vitamins, in particular B12, B9, B6, and B2, are essential for the methylation process. And if you're not sure if you get enough of that from your diet, it doesn't hurt to, add a methylated B complex, in your diet. Yeah, try, if you buy a B supplement, a complex, make sure it says methylated B complex. And then I know choline is not really a vitamin, but I had to add it there because choline is important for the methylation. You can find that in like egg yolk, a liver, meat, fish. And then again, sleep and sun. So sleep is important for methylation. That's why if you don't sleep, you age quicker. And then again, a little bit of sun is needed because sun also helps with the methylation. And then we have TMG or betaine, also known as trimethylglycine, which is an amino acid that has 3 methyl groups attached to it, which helps a lot with the methylation process. Now, according to David Sinclair, he's taken TMG with an NAD booster such as NMN on top of that to, speed up the methylation. If you don't know what NMN is, don't worry, we're going to get to that. And then, okay, nutrition that accelerates aging. Okay, now this one could be a lecture on its own. Okay, there's just so much to talk about, but for the time being, let's glance over it. Okay, so the fastest way to age quick is eating a standard American diet on fast food. They are high in trans fat, loaded with sugar, probably also GMO, and also have more calories than probably when you go to Europe. Now, but what is the worst? As an example, like America is known for burgers. Let's talk about burger, fast food. There is no fiber, in fast food or a lot of the American food for simple reasons, because fibers keep you satiated. Fiber is what keeps you full. Now, if you take that out of the equation, that means you can eat more and you don't get that full feeling. So that is one reason why they remove it, in fast food restaurants. But what you probably didn't know is the sauces they add in their burgers or in all the sauces, whatever, for chicken nuggets, they actually found out there are certain chemicals, when you add that, it temporarily breaks the signaling pathways from leptin to the brain. Leptin is a hormone that gets released from your fat cell to the brain and tells you, hey, we have enough fat stored, stop eating. As an example, when you eat, right, and you go, oh, I'm getting full. That is leptin. So have you noticed when you go to fast food restaurants, you can actually eat, and you don't really get that feeling? Now you know why. Because I was wondering when I was a little kid, I was 15 years old and we had our first McDonald's in our town, but it was far away and we only got there about every 2 months. So I was like eating a lot. And I was surprised that I was able to eat like 8, 9, or 10 burgers, and 4 of them or 5 of them were Big Macs. And I was like, how is it possible? I don't get that full feeling. Well, little did I know. All right, now let's talk about foods that are high in AGEs. And they go hand in hand with sugar. I'm actually shocked that it hasn't been talked about more. Advanced glycation end products are so harmful to our health. Like, I don't even know where to start. There's a TED Talk, look it up. Advanced glycation end products, TED Talk. Look that up and watch that. You'll be surprised, how bad it is. All right, so what are AGEs? They are found in food naturally, not so much in like plant foods and in fruits, but more in animals and dairies. But where we really accelerate the AGEs is in the way we cook it. High heat or grilling it increases the AGEs. Give you an example. 2 slices of bacon has 82,000. Especially if you heat them up in the pan in the morning. To put that in perspective, the FDA says to do not more than 15,000 a day. So 2 slices of bacon is 92,000. Or if you have a chicken, 3-ounce chicken, raw chicken, has about 900 AGEs. If you grill it, it goes up to 4,500. So as you can see, you get to this number very easily. Now, but what's the big deal with AGEs? When you grill your steak, and I was one of them, and it turns like nice and brown, that brown color or black, and it tastes so good, right? And also the toast, when you toast your bread and it turns brown. Well, I don't think after this you will do it again, because that caramelization process, what that means is it crystallizes and it creates the sugar molecules. And then when sugar binds with proteins and fat in the bloodstream, they start malforming, crystallizing, if you will, and they get deposited in your skin. And what happens is they break down your collagen and your elastins, and you get sagging skin. And the same with sugar, then sugar itself, it is sugar. So that means if you go to a restaurant, you have let's say a steak or chicken salad, and then the waitress comes up to you, oh, may I give you like a dessert? And you're like, yeah, I eat healthy, let's do dessert. Well, what you actually do is you're speeding up your aging process 7 times. You can look it up on your phone. Consuming sugar every single day, you age 7 times quicker. And I don't make up this number. So how to avoid that? Well, when I found out, I started steaming and poaching my food, but it doesn't taste as great. But yeah, and you might say, well, I don't care. I want my steak. I don't care if I have a few wrinkles. But let me tell you, you also have skin that wraps around your organs, the epithelia, and that one is getting affected too. So it also breaks down the skin internally, and that causes oxidative stress and inflammation. And it's also linked to cancer and chronic diseases, including heart disease. So I would really recommend to watch the TED show on AGEs. It's going to blow your mind. I'm actually shocked that most people don't know about this. All right, next one. Well, I think the next topic, there's not much to talk about. Drugs and alcohol, of course, cause cellular damage, oxidative stress, organ damage, especially the liver. But, when you take drugs, most of the drugs are uppers, which means you don't sleep, and we already know how important sleep is. But let's focus on alcohol, because I know a lot of people drink alcohol so they can go to sleep at night. What you don't know is alcohol to the body is poison. For you, it might be pleasure, but for the body, it's poison. So whenever you drink and you might sleep, I wouldn't say better, but you pass out quicker, right? But internally, what's happening is the body's on high alert. The body's like, oh my God, we have poison here. Let's get it out. Let's get out. So the sympathetic nervous system is turning on and trying to get the poison out as fast as it can. So what that means is, as you sleep, it is impossible for the body to get in a deep REM sleep, because if the sympathetic nervous system is turned on and you've poisoned your body, you cannot get a deep REM sleep because the body needs to get out of the alcohol. And that kind of like explains, and that of course depends on how much you drink, but that explains why you have a hangover, the next day. Or if you drink a lot, or even if you drink a little bit, you feel like, oh, I'm like tired, right? Well, that is why, because the body cannot recover. Right, chronic stress. Chronic stress, again, that low grade, long, stress we get exposed to literally, ages you quicker, messes up your hormone balance, increases inflammation, and we already know that inflammation directly is exposed to faster aging and chronic diseases, and also impairs cellular function. That one is an interesting one. If anybody is a bodybuilder here, now it's the time to walk out. All right, anabolic steroids and HGH. Who would have known? So, HGH used to be the fountain of youth, right? When I was living in LA, I took it for 4 years, like 2 units a day, just for anti-aging purposes, and I paid a lot of money for that. And now it came out that HGH and anabolic steroids, of course, those depends on the duration and how long and how much you take, but it activates mTOR activation, which stands for mammalian target of rapamycin, which is important for cell growth, cell regeneration, cellular metabolism, and signaling, which means after workout, you want mTOR activated because it's responsible, for protein synthesis, which means, to gain muscle and to recover. But on days you don't train, you want to have it deactivated. And the reason why is cell growth, if you boil it down to formulation, cell growth equals aging. Whenever your cells are growing, you also age quicker, which means you might look great, for like, 10, 15, maybe 20 years, muscular and, fit and everything. But every single animal study has shown when mTOR is chronically activated, you shorten your life by like 15 to 20%. So now you've got to think about, okay, is it worth it to look good for like 10, 15 years? And that might be also, if you think about it, that might be also a reason why so many modern bodybuilders, they take so much stuff, correct me if I'm wrong, but they all die between 45 and 60. A lot of them can't even make it past that. Well, that might be one theory, why. And then we have inflammation and CRP blood test. Okay, so inflammation, of course, comes from poor diet, obesity, smoke, and alcohol, and something we already know. On your next blood test, add CRP, which is a great inflammation marker. If you have elevated CRP and elevated LDL, cholesterol, and also triglycerides, if you have all those high elevated with CRP, then you should go to the doctor because the chances of you getting a heart attack goes up by 10. All right, next page. All right, and now we talk about those longevity pathways. Now, these are the ones we want to activate or deactivate, in order for longevity to occur. All right, first we have CD38, which is an enzyme that starts accumulating as we age. We haven't really found out, why they start accumulating as we age, but it has some issues with it. It causes oxidative stress, but for our topic today, we want to look at this. So as you can see, it starts accumulating mostly on the surface of the cell. And what it does is it depletes NAD. NAD is basically the cellular energy. We'll talk about NAD, a lot today. So, and it depletes and metabolizes your NAD. And there's one theory, why we have less and less energy as we get older might be because of this. Because CD38 starts accumulating as we age and it depletes your NAD, which you need for energy. NAD is so important. If you don't have it, you would be dead in 30 seconds. The next one is AMPK, adenosine monophosphate activated protein kinase. Let's stick to AMPK. So this one responds to cellular stress, energy depletion, oxidative stress, and DNA damage. AMPK is the master switch to regulate all the energy pathways in the body. Now, this one, when activated, it only gets activated when your energy is low, when it drops. So that means that's why exercising is such a great tool, because when your energy drops, AMPK gets activated. And for the people that don't do any exercises and sit on the couch all day watching TV and eating all day, I mean, they hardly, if any, activate those pathways. And that, of course, doesn't turn out to be well. And also enhances mitochondrial function, reduces inflammation, and promotes autophagy, which we'll also talk about in a little bit. Longevity pathways, we actually found out recently, they all talk to each other. They all communicate with each other. And as an example, like as you can see here, all this has to be suppressed for autophagy to occur. Otherwise, those senescent cells start accumulating, and they also are known to cause, oxidative stress and cancer and, a lot of diseases. And then AMPK is, what regulates them. The energy has to be, suppressed in order for AMPK to get activated. Right, now, sure everybody knows autophagy. If you translate it, means, self-eating, which is basically a process where the cells start recycling themselves. And you can actually see when, senescent cells, also known as zombie cells, what happens is they start accumulating and they usually don't get kicked out, especially if mTOR is always activated. Remember we said when you take a lot of steroids and you eat a lot of protein, mTOR responds to that, and autophagy cannot occur if mTOR is always activated. So that means the accumulation of senescent cells, of the zombie cells, go up and up and up. And then after a while, that causes, a lot of those, chronic diseases. So what happens is when those cells, if you're in a fasted state, about 48 hours, that's when actually autophagy starts kicking in. But don't worry about it, because we can actually mimic, a 48-hour fast without the fasting when we get to those longevity molecules. That's the beauty about it. But basically, when these cells start rejuvenating themselves, they start binding with the lysosome, which has powerful enzymes in there. And as it, binds, it releases the enzymes in the cell, and it starts recycling all the organelles. The organelles are basically the organ of the cell. And these are my favorites, the sirtuin genes. It's a family of 7 genes that we found are placed in our cells. Some are in the nucleus, some in the matrix, and some in the mitochondria, and so on. And they all have, different jobs. They improve energy, activates DNA repair. So remember, when you have sun damage or X-ray damage, when there's like serious DNA damage, then these are responsible to get activated to repair. And then also SIRT6 is directly responsible for healthy aging. So if sirtuin 6 is activated, it actually slows down the aging process. But we're going to get to this in a little bit more. And also improves insulin and fat burning, healthy brain function, improves stress resilience, and also reduces inflammation. And here you can see what activates the sirtuins. We're going to talk about this more, but here to give you a little preview, heat exposure, cold exposure, exercise, polyphenols, and some sort of fasting, intermittent fasting, any kind of fasting. So these activate the sirtuins directly. And then when the sirtuins get activated, they help with fat metabolism, brain function, muscle, cellular function, insulin, fat metabolism, and so on. But we're going to talk about this in a little bit more. And here you see another great expression. When they get activated, they help with the senescence, which are those zombie cells that get kicked out. Then cell survival, DNA repair, cellular metabolism, and proliferation. Okay, and now we get to the mTOR again. We already talked about this one briefly. So mTOR responds to nutrients. It's a nutrient sensor, and also to cellular stress, which means, when you work out, it gets activated and helps you with protein synthesis. In other words, to build muscle. So, but it also reacts to amino acids, in particular the BCAAs, the leucine. So what does it mean? That means if you take BCAAs, all day long. I know there's a lot of people that drink the BCAAs all day, right? Well, you're going to activate mTOR. And there's an up and there's a downside. The downside is, we know now when mTOR is chronically activated, it means cell growth. And remember we said, when the cells are growing, you also age faster. So again, you might look good for like 10, 15 years, but on the long run, at least that's what it has shown in all the animal studies, it shortens your lifespan by like 15, 20%. Now, does it mean that it has to happen the same way with humans? We don't know for 100%, but if it happens in all the animals, I would say so. And what else? Yeah, that's about mTOR. So, and by the way, all these longevity pathways we just talked about, okay, they usually get activated in adversity, like in rough times. Back in the days, we didn't have food all the time, right? So there was always like forced fasting, which means they get activated. And also like, running around hunting, right? So that means your energy gets depleted, and of course, AMPK gets activated. So everything we used to do to survive activated those longevity pathways. Now, the fastest way to age these days is never be cold, never be, hot, never be cold, always be comfortable, right? Like, never really get exposed to those short stresses. And also, eating all day is just the worst part. If we already know that whenever you eat, mTOR gets activated, especially if you eat a lot of protein, which means, you speed up the aging process. So, yeah, the best way to get those age-related diseases faster and to also age faster is having a normal, standard American lifestyle, which means no exercising, watching TV, no moving around, using the car, never be cold, never be hot, always be comfortable. Yeah, we know now this is just the worst for the aging process. And here you can see mTOR autophagy. Okay, so autophagy can only occur when mTOR is deactivated. mTOR is like a spring. At times, after training, you want to have it activated, but when you don't need it, you want to have it deactivated to slow down the process, the aging process. Now, mTOR is important. It's essential for protein synthesis, which means to build muscle. But then again, you look good, you build muscle, but the price you pay, hyperactivation of mTOR, leads to this, like faster. And like I said before, that might be one theory why so many professional bodybuilders, don't make it past 60. All right, what activates the longevity pathways? Now it's getting interesting. All right, so sauna, cold plunge, exercise, calorie restriction. All right, getting exposed to in the sauna, we have those heat shock proteins in the cell, and when they get activated because of high heat exposure, they actually have cellular protection, and they also activate those longevity pathways. And then, of course, sauna has many other great benefits: muscle recovery, detoxification, helps with autophagy. When it comes to detoxification, keep in mind, if you want to burn fat without exercising, if you go in a sauna or in a cold plunge in a fasting state, it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy for the body to either cool you down or to heat you up. So, as an example, if you go in a cold plunge for about 11 minutes straight, you burn roughly 200 calories. Now, anybody here that does cardio and goes on the stepper or like on the bike actually knows how long it takes to burn 200 calories. So, yeah, it's a good way to burn extra calories. And then cold plunge, improves circulation, reduces inflammation. That's why so many professional athletes take a cold plunge after a long match. Also helps with repair. And that one for sure speeds up the metabolism. and also burns a lot of calories. But again, if you do all that in a fasting state, then you'll get a lot more benefits. Next one is exercise. Exercise, again, what happens is you lower your energy, NPK gets activated, and also it activates a process called mitochondrial biogenesis, which means if the energy demand goes up, like when you run every day or you train every day, then the body has to keep up with the demand, so it creates new mitochondria which help it with energy in the form of ATP. And also helps with low-grade inflammation, and this is a good one too, telomere maintenance. So as we already know, at the end of the chromosome, there's those protective caps, the telomeres, that hold the chromosome, the DNA, protected. And there's an enzyme, it's called telomerase, which needs to be activated in order for the telomeres to maintain, to elongate. We used to think that the length of the telomeres determines our age. But don't get me wrong, that's still okay, but we found out it's actually a little bit more complicated than just the telomere itself. And then calorie restriction. Calorie restriction in all the animal studies has shown to expand your life. Also because when you have less calories, you activate those longevity pathways, especially AMPK. But let me give you a good analogy here also. I know everybody has a car here, right? So let's say you buy a brand new car and you never turn it off. The minute you leave the shop, it always keeps running. Even right now when you park or when you sleep at night, the engine never gets turned off. What do you think is going to happen to the car? I think it's fair to say that the life expectancy of the car goes down by what, 50%? But yet, we do the same every day with our body. Because the biggest stressor we put on our body every single day is eating, believe it or not. It takes a lot of energy to digest and break down the food to get those little tiny small nanoparticles into your cells. So you have 100% of energy available. When you eat, when you digest food, you have about 30 goes away. Now you've only 70 left for all the other bodily functions. So that's how much energy it actually takes. And of course, eating less also means that the body is also burning fat, because when there's not enough calories available, then and the body is depleted of glucose, then the body is getting into the fat. The fat is nothing else than a stored battery. It's just for emergency purposes, which means it doesn't get touched. I know there's some people that say, you got to eat this food to burn fat. There is no food that burns fat. That's impossible. There's no food that can burn fat. The fat storage only gets depleted when there is no energy available in the form of glucose. So if the body is completely depleted, then it will touch the fat. Otherwise, it won't even touch it. Right, and here, polyphenols. Polyphenols are those phytochemicals that are created by plants. This is an interesting one too. That one has shown, remember, activates directly those sirtuin pathways, which are directly responsible for healthy aging and for cellular health and DNA protection. So it helps broken DNA to repair. And also it has shown, it's also in cancer research now, because it has shown great potential in that field also, and also helps with gut health. So polyphenols are those defense mechanisms, from plants, which means when they get, attacked by bugs, insects, right, then they create those polyphenols as defense mechanisms. And then when we ingest that, it actually has shown that we actually receive all those health benefits. So that means if you eat non-organic, then there is no need for the plants to produce those polyphenols, because they're protected from those chemicals, those pesticides. So, which means if you eat those, you don't get the polyphenols. And also like plants that grow in like harsh areas, with harsh weather condition, they also create more polyphenols. And then of course fasting and intermittent fasting, any form of fasting. Yeah, fasting is just fantastic because it really activates all the longevity pathways, and it even suppresses mTOR. It's kind of funny, like every religion speaks about fasting, and when I was a kid, I thought it was some sort of like punishment we have to go through, right? And now I'm actually so impressed, because the benefits we get from fasting, even just like, intermittent fasting, is just unbelievable. I mean, this could be a lecture on its own. There's just so much to talk about. And it doesn't cost you anything. That's why a lot of doctors don't talk about this, because there's no money to make, it's free. But they activate all the longevity pathways as well, which help you to have a much healthier life. All right. The last one is the longevity supplements. Remember, all these pathways, get activated through adversity. But sometimes, if you don't want to do the sauna, if you don't want to do the fasting, there's another option too, which is those longevity molecules. I don't know if we call it supplements, I would call it molecules. But these directly activate or deactivate those pathways, those longevity pathways we talked about. But that does not mean that you shouldn't do any fasting or calorie restriction or any other sauna, cold plunge. I do it all together. All right, the first one is NMN, nicodynamate monoaminonucleotide, which is a precursor to NAD. You can actually see here a picture of twins. So they're the same age. Now, obviously, there's a big difference, right? One looks like it's about to die, and the other one looks like, young. Now, the only difference is one was fed with NMN, and one was aging naturally. So that mouse overran the spinning wheel. They wanted to know how fast a mouse can run. So the program stopped after 3 miles. And then, when the scientists came back in and checked, they're like, oh, God damn it, the wheel is broken. And then they actually checked, they were like, holy shit, no, it's not broken. The mouse overran the program. That never ever happened before. There's no mouse on this planet that runs more than 3 miles. Shit, I can even run 3 miles. And for that little things to do that, that's how much energy they got from the NMN. So I know I get this question all the time, why do we have to take precursor, those NMN and NR? Why not just take an NAD? Well, NAD itself is a fairly larger molecule, and it has a hard time entering the cell. But honestly, there's not enough research really on that to confirm that 100%, but that's what the scientists are saying. NMN is a smaller molecule, and as soon as it enters the cell, it gets converted to NAD+. And I've been using it myself for 4 years. And my experience is, I was already fit before, so I did not feel like, wow, like huge difference. But I had a lot of gray hair on the side. I wish I could share a picture. Like I was all gray here on the side. And after years and years, a lot of, like 90% of my gray hair disappeared. Do I know 100% it's coming from that? No, because I do a lot of other stuff too, but that could be one reason. It also improves mitochondrial function. It activates the sirtuin pathways. Remember, sirtuin, the SIRT6, is the one directly responsible for healthy aging. And then helps with ATP, DNA repair, metabolism, slowing aging. Also activates AMPK, and also helps with autophagy, and indirectly a little bit helps with mTOR. All right, the next one is NR, nicodynamate ribocyte, which is similar to NMN. It's just a cheaper version. It doesn't have the phosphate attached to it, and this one also has shown to be a good precursor to NAD. Now, the only difference is when they tested it on the mice could not overrun the spinning wheel, so they did not get that crazy energy with that. But this one also activates the NAD. And I'm not sure if you know, but the NMN was working so well, they actually took it off the market because they actually making a drug out of it. So it's really hard to get. So you won't get that on Amazon no more. And a lot of that stuff you buy on Amazon is fake. They have tested it. So it's actually hard to get the real one. And then we talked about this before a little bit, about the methylation, TMG. TMG already has, remember, helps with the methylation process, has 3 methyl groups attached, promotes cellular function, DNA synthesis, gene expression, which means to help to turn on and off the cells, and also protects the cells from free radicals, and also lowers the homocysteine, which is important if you have a deficiency in B vitamins. And then the good old resveratrol. That's been around for like, what, 20 years, 25 years? That was one of the first longevity supplements. And I know I get this question all the time too. It comes from grapes, from red wine. And before anybody asks, can you drink red wine every day to get to that? If you drink about 300 glasses a day, yes, you can. But I would not recommend that. So this one, also activates sirtuin 1 and 6, cellular metabolism, DNA repair, and it's a great anti-inflammatory. So if you have some sort of like injury, especially from working out, it's a really good, powerful anti-inflammatory, and also activate AMPK. So as you can see, all these, to some degree, activate all those longevity pathways. And for the longest, we had no idea. And we had no idea that that is actually so helpful for us. But now, since we have David Sinclair doing all the studies, and we actually have now a lot of money in that field, believe it or not, because back in the days, aging was like, it's natural. It's like, you can't stop it, right? It's aging. But now scientists actually agree, and I agree with them, aging, in my opinion, is a disease. Because the reason why we get a lot of those age-related diseases is because of aging itself. But in the healthcare system, we focus so much on, the symptom of aging, which heart disease, dementia, Alzheimer, and so on, right? And try to fix that with drugs and radiation, whatever. But then, why not just stepping back and go to the root cause of all that and focus on healthy aging instead of that? That way, you can keep it away, or at least elongate it, because, who wants that? Okay, this one is interesting. Spermidine. And yes, it comes from sperm. It actually was first discovered in sperm. No comment to that. But now they get it also from algae, but in particular from wheat germ as a supplement, and actually also was invented by an Austrian guy. It was actually from my town, close to my town in Austria. And they actually have a supplement on the market with the right combination, spermidine. Now this one, remember we talked about autophagy, when the cells, recycles itself? I'm telling you, spermidine there's nothing better on the market that promotes autophagy. Like, you would have to fast for at least 48 hours for autophagy to even start. This one, without fasting at all, starts the autophagy process. That's how powerful this one is. And this one activates like 3 of the sirtuins, SIRT1, 3, and 6. And again, remember the 6 is the one for aging. Promotes mitochondrial biogenesis, activates AMPK, supports mitochondrial function, and it also helps with epigenetics, sort of modulation, meaning, with the genes turning on and off. Like spermidine, if you ask me, well, my favorites is NMN, spermidine, TMG, and on the next page, I'll take those 2. All right, this one is AKG. Okay, so this one is the calcium form. I know in bodybuilding, they use the arginine form. That one does not have those anti-aging effects. And this one is also a little bit more expensive, the calcium AKG. This one supports mitochondrial function, great for detoxifying the body, and also has shown, there's quite a few studies, if you look it up online, they all have shown to extend the lifespan. And this one, if you want to have nice skin, this one helps with, promotes the synthesis of collagen. So that is, people take only collagen by itself, but what people don't realize, depending on if it's micronized or not, the body has a hard time absorbing it. So if you don't take it with vitamin C or lysine or some of these, then you might waste it. For sure you're going to increase the absorption rate if you take vitamin C with it, and maybe those 2. And then the next one is Epigen. Remember we talked about those longevity pathways, the CD38 enzyme that starts accumulating the cells, and it depletes NAD. Well, the good news is we actually have a product that inhibits the accumulation of CD38. Epigen, you can find that in fruits and plant foods, but probably not enough to really make a great impact. And in supplement form, it's not that crazy expensive. And if you take it, make sure you take it in the evening because it also helps with restful sleep. But this one starts suppressing the CD38 on the surface of your cell, and then it means NAD doesn't get depleted. And yeah, that means your energy, you can keep your energy up. Yeah, and this one also promotes collagen synthesis. All right, the next one is exosome stem cells. Yeah, that one is the latest and the greatest. I also work for a company, exosome company, directly because, I mean, the studies on that stuff is just amazing. I mean, just look it up online. I mean, I have not seen any negative side effect or any negative feedback on that stuff. What are exosomes? Well, stem cells have to communicate, right? So, and they release those tiny vesicles called exosomes to communicate. In the same way, if I couldn't speak, right, and I need to tell you something, and I need to shoot you email, right? So the email would be the exosome. And now I send you the email, and now you know what to do. So they communicate with each other, for their repairing system. I think a good analogy is, imagine the exosomes are an army of construction workers. And when you can use them for regrowing your hair, your skin, IV, they go through the entire body, and wherever they see there's damage, it starts repairing it. And great for the skin. I did my face also. You can use the exosome. You can inject it or you can do the gel, but actually it turned out that the gel is actually better and also cheaper. And it has mRNA, cytokines, proteins, and also growth factors, which stimulate the repairing system. So if you have sun damage or like a cut or like a scar or anything, it will repair it. I mean, it literally will repair it and rejuvenate your skin. And also great for hair growth. I mean, as of now, as far as I know, that exosome has the best results in regrowing hair. And you can also look that up. There's many YouTube videos about it. All right, peptide, that could also be a lecture on its own. Epithelin peptide helps with elongating telomerase. Remember that the telomeres is the protective cap of your chromosome, which is also a good indicator on how we determine the aging process. So epithelin activates telomerase, which is that enzyme that helps to repair that protective cap. There's a certain way. I want to say something to all this, okay? Don't just buy it and just take it, okay? Because you need to know how to take it and everything. Like, as an example, resveratrol, if you just take a capsule form and you take it without fat, you're just wasting it because it's like brick dust. And never buy the brown one. Always buy the white one. The brown one is not even effective. So you need to know certain ways. Like some of them you have to take an empty stomach, some with food, and some you have to take with fat so that the body can absorb it. So, yeah. And the next one is the copper peptide. The copper peptide also has shown great effect in rejuvenating your skin. Great for inflammation. They have it in a liquid form to inject, but for the most part, all the cosmetics have the copper peptide in the skin products. I've been using that for 2 years, like every single day, all day long, all day night. I put those peptides on my face, and I mean, seems to work. And then this one is an interesting one, thymolene. It stimulates the thymus gland that produces T cells, which is a great part of your white blood cells for you to immune function. Now, this one should tell you something. During COVID, the government banned this one. You could not get it. So if the government bans something or takes it off the market, it works. So, and then we have the BPC 157, which probably most of you know here. That's a powerful peptide that helps with tissue repair. They have a tablet form and the injectable form. The tablet form doesn't help so much with tissue repair, but it helps great with your gut health. And then the TB500, also very similar, also helps with tissue repair. You know, if you have a lot of aching and a lot of like joint pain and stuff like that, those two in combination have shown great effect. And by the way, the BBC 157 is also FDA approved. Not like that means a lot these days, but just to let you know. And then this one is interesting, the PNC 27. This one is fairly new, but this one is going crazy in the cancer research because it has actually shown if they inject it in tumors, it shrinks the tumor. So it's actually in studies right now. Yeah, and I always like to keep myself updated with the new studies. I haven't seen any update yet. I mean, to be honest, I haven't checked in the last few months. But that one I know is in cancer research and has shown really great benefits when you can research it. All right, last page. All right, I'm going to talk about metformin first because I have a guest speaker for the Carbon 60. Because this guy, Darren, he owns a lab here in Scottsdale, and he can tell you exactly. I actually went to his facility, and he can actually tell you exactly on how to make it. I even made a video about it. It's very interesting how they make Carbon 60. It's quite amazing. All right, let's talk about metformin. Metformin is a drug, a prescription drug, which, usually I'm not a big fan of drugs, but the research on that one just blew my mind. I mean, besides it activates, all the longevity pathways, which we already know by now how important it is for longevity, the most powerful thing with metformin is it inhibits mTOR. So on days you don't train, take metformin, it suppresses mTOR. Or let's say if you decide to train tomorrow, then don't take it the night before because, I mean, you can take it, but your energy will be a little bit depleted. But then again, this one in combination with NMN and spermidine, that's what I'm using, has shown great effects with a lot of people as far as anti-aging is concerned. Metformin is originally a diabetes drug. It helps to lower the glucose and everything. But if healthy people are taking it, it actually has shown amazing benefits in the anti-aging field. So, I mean, I'm not recommending anything, but what convinced me, this one, there was a 10-year study with 5,000 people. One group was diabetic. Can't talk anymore. One group was pre-diabetic, and the other group was healthy. So they put them on metformin, and it was a huge study and went on for 10 years. And then after 10 years, when they checked, the group that was sick before with type 2 diabetes was healthier than the group that were healthy before. Now wrap your mind around that. And I was like, what? And I had to read it 2 times, and I had to do some more research about it because I couldn't believe it. Yeah, and that really what convinced me to take it. And it's cheap. It's been on the market for like 60 years, and it's well researched. I mean, if you take too much, it can mess up your stomach or get diarrhea. I don't take it every day, and I also take it on days I don't train. And I only take, 500 milligrams. I know most people take more than that, but that's, it's enough. Okay, now I want to have Bucky Lab coming up, and he can explain a little bit about Carbon 60. There you go.
So we make Carbon 60 and some other longevity supplements. I brought some samples I can show you guys. I'm not here to sell you these things, just kind of tell you about them and how you can go to our site and see more information and order it if you want. Carbon 60. So there was a French study. These guys were trying to understand how much C60 would kill rats. So they loaded them up, and they fed it to a group, and then they go, what's going on? These rats are living way too long, and they're healthy. And it turns out they lived almost twice as long. The last rat they had to kill because they got tired of waiting for it to die. They were Worcester rats, and Worcester rats, they usually die full of tumors. I guess it's just because of the breed or something. And they opened up these rats, and there was no cancer, no tumors. So that's pretty crazy. So it got me interested in it. Carbon 60 is also known as Buckminster fullerenes. It was named after Buckminster Fuller, who created the geodesic dome, because carbon-60 is a molecule of carbon with 60 carbon atoms, and it looks like a soccer ball because the hexagons that make it up. So the way it works, so it's a nanoparticle, super small. It goes everywhere in your body. We cover it in olive oil, so it's into the gut. So yeah, any kind of lipid actually would work, but olive oil is good in the study. So it goes everywhere in your body, but one of the places it goes is very important is on the mitochondrial wall. And on the mitochondrial wall, it's like a cage structure, and it will hold electrons. And when they're the reactive oxygen species that are free radical, it can donate a electron to it and quench it. So the theory is, the way that it's working is it keeps quenching these free radicals when they appear on the mitochondria. So all I can think of as far as C60 goes.
How is that different from activated carbon?
Well, activated carbon is, though it's just carbon, it acts completely different. Just like in any chemical, you change one thing about it and it completely acts differently in your system. So activated carbon is good for like detox and stuff like that. Can draw out heavy metals, right? I don't know what bad chemistry there is there. And C60 really works completely differently. Like I explained.
Yeah, I had shown the longest lifespan, which
Yeah.
was crazy. From all the supplements, from all the longevity molecules, carbon-60, I mean, it has 90%. It doubled the lifespan in mice, which is insane.
You never see
I mean,
that in supplements or substances like this. And actually, I should mention that we did our own longevity test with all of our products and other well-known longevity drugs like metformin and rapamycin and basically all of the biggies. And in some certain combinations, we had 250 male mice, and the largest group was C60 and olive oil, and we fed it to them every day in their kibble. Like we made our own kibble with it. Long story short, the longest lived mice were the C60 group. 8 of the 9 longest lived mice out of the whole thing were of the C60 group. So yeah, I mean that double proved it for us.
Yeah, and if anybody needs any supplements for good price, and I actually before teamed up with him, I checked, so it is legit. We tested it. But the NMN, those nicotiniamide mononucleotide, you won't get no more online because they took it off the market, like I said, because they're making a drug out of it. But he still has some left.
I've got some.
You have some here. So
well, I just wanted to show everybody that.
if anybody's interested, you can see it. And if you want to check out his website, and you want to buy some, you can use my discount code. Was it True Nut?
True Nut.
True Nut, yeah. Instead of True Nutrition, True Nut.
But I just wanted to show everybody that I also brought some real, I mean this is real too, but this is drugs. These are prescription drugs, metformin, which we talked about right there, and rapamycin, and that's the mTOR inhibitor. Acarbose, which we didn't talk about, but it's similar to metformin. Sorry? Oh, rapamycin. Rapamycin, because we talked about mTOR, and mTOR was created after they discovered rapamycin, actually. They were able to name mechanistic target of rapamycin.
Rapamycin, yep.
And it was found on Easter Island. It was some bacteria on those, those faces, those big rock faces on Easter Island. They scraped off some of the goo, and they did a bunch of testing on it, and they found that it makes mice and rats and people live longer, and it also, at high dosages, they use it for host versus graft disease when someone gets an organ transplant, and you have to suppress the immune system. So you have to be careful on the dosage so you don't mess with your immune system. And the other one, just real quick, I wanted to mention was dasatinib. We didn't talk about it, but dasatinib along with fisetin or quercetin is a senolytic. And a senolytic kills senescent cells. Killing senescent cells is really important because in senescent cells, I'm probably yelling loud, not enough for it, but senescent cells give information in your body. And they also signal to the other cells around to say, okay, you guys can go to sleep too. These are the zombie cells we talked about. So yeah, one more thing to mention. In May, the end of May, I just did a blood work on myself because I'm a bit of a health nut and a hacker. And I put my results into this thing called Aging AI, and there's a new version out. But it's online and it's free, and you can put in all of your blood specifics, and it'll tell you what your age is. It's not quite as accurate as your methylation age, but mine was 38, which is super great. I'm so happy because I'm 57.
Oh yeah, so you probably want to know, okay, is there any proof that we know that all those longevity molecules actually expand life? Well, nobody wants to wait 150 years to see if it really works on humans also. So that's why we all do it. But in animal studies, they were successful, especially the NMN and the carbon-60. But also keep in mind, you don't have to wait 150 years to see if something works. You can also do the DNA methylation testing, the aging testing, which I did. I mean, I'm 46 now, getting close to 47, but according to the test, I was 34. So that means the way my body functions internally on a cellular level is of a 34-year-old and not a 46-year-old. And I did that in less than 3 years. Because I can tell you one thing, when I was in my mid-20s, I was 40, because I partied a lot. So I had to do a lot of reversing. So yeah, I mean, you can actually see that it does work. Also, from my company, from True Nutrition, I put together a 6 months anti-aging blueprint program. I was working on that for a year and a half, and I had to do a lot of studying on myself to see what works, what doesn't work. So it's very comprehensive, everything we talked about today, and even more stuff, even separate stuff for the skin and everything. And we take DNA methylation testing in the beginning, and then I guide you through the entire program, and then 6 months later, you do it again, and you can see that you actually, on a cellular level, aging backwards. So it's not just science fiction anymore and say, oh, take this, you're going to age back. No, we actually do the DNA testing, and you can actually see it yourself if something is working. Some questions?
I have 3 questions.
Uh-oh.
So, yeah, I've been waiting. First of all, on this, where it says 300 times more potent than vitamin C,
Yeah.
in what regard? Like,
They're talking about antioxidants.
Yep.
for measuring antioxidants. Okay. And then the next question is, on the stuff that you were talking about with methylation, how does that interface with those who have methylation disorders like MTHFR, COMT, things like that? Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, those people have to take, also drugs, I guess, depending on the level of methylation issue. We don't really know if that interferes with the aging process. I have not seen any study to confirm that. I don't know, to be honest. But it only makes sense if something interferes with the methylation process that it might affect the aging process. So yeah.
Okay, and then the last question is, in the 90s, there was a research study that I came across where the mice lived 3 times, so 300% longer. The mice that consumed grapefruit peels. Are you familiar with that study? I can't find it on PubMed anymore.
No, no, not that.
Thank you.
Have you heard about that?
I haven't heard that.
No, if that's the case, I'm going to eat this all day.
Yeah. See if you
Well,
can find it.
there's another, it just has shown, actually, that just came out, 3-4 weeks ago, like the amino acid taurine, which been around forever, right? Actually shown now, it's like the thing right now. It has shown in all the animal studies to expand the lifespan. And we didn't even know. And then, of course, when I read the study, I mean, you just go on YouTube, like it's all over the place right now. It's like D-hype. And it's actually hard to get it now on Amazon because everybody's buying it. But it's just simple taurine, which is just an amino acid. It has been around forever, but no research ever has done on longevity, and now it has shown it expands lifespan. I think there's just so much stuff on the market, but we never, I mean, think about it. We never took aging like serious, because aging is like, I mean, it's normal. We all die, we age, right? But then David Sinclair, came in and said, wait a minute, step back. I said, there is no law that says that we have to age. I mean, if you look at some of the animals, they live like 200, 300 years old. And some of them genetically are kind of similar. They're not too far off. And so who says that we can't get to that point? And he was actually the first one that came out with that. And he was the one that says aging is a disease. And everybody at the beginning was like, they're talking about aging disease. What are they talking about? And now, when you actually look at it, what aging does and how aging occurs, and it interferes the methylation processes, and the methylation processes, and that gets messed up, causes a lot of those age-related diseases. And now, a lot of scientists actually agree with him, not 100%, but slowly agree with him. Yeah, actually, aging is a disease because, kids don't get those age-related diseases because everything is functioning, right? I mean, there's still like some against it. It's like, it's still a new field, and who knows, there's always new stuff coming out, like the taurine, is out forever. In the last 3-4 weeks, all of a sudden it's anti-aging amino acid. I mean, it really depends.
Is there a relationship in carbon 60 with the kidney stones? Because I know that vitamin C in excess can cause kidney stones. So how is the relationship to the carbon 60?
Yeah,
Here's the pro.
I'll answer your one. We haven't seen any connection with kidney stones. I don't know how vitamin C does that. Maybe for the acid. I don't know. But yeah. And now there's not been specific study on it. There's not really been many people studying C60 at all because there's no money in it. It's a natural substance. It's in the air. It's created by stars. They found it. But anyway, yeah, there's no.
You guys have any more questions about any of those longevity molecules? I mean, if I think any man, if you're still able to get it, well, he still has some. But again, online, you probably won't get it no more. But it was on the market for quite a few years, and they just took it off about, what was that, 4 months ago? Yeah, something like that, yeah, because they're making a drug out of it. So it actually was working so well, that was like, hey, let's take it off the market, let's convert it to a drug and make some more money and make it a prescription drug, and that's what's happening right now. And whenever there's a drug development about a supplement, it cannot be sold as a supplement no more, and they took it off the market. I think it's also because of David Sinclair, right? Yeah. So yeah, so basically what that means is, to sum it all up, what you want to do is you want to mimic adversity. You don't have to like be out in the cold all day long, and suffer. It's the same with exercising. If you exercise too much, where the body cannot recover, then you do more harm than any good. You put the body under stress and then recover. Stress, recover. And you can do that with fasting, calorie restriction, sauna, cold plunge. That's why sauna and cold plunge has become so popular in the last few years, because they found out that it activates those longevity pathways. It's just like, it's been around for so long, but we didn't have no research on it, like why is it beneficial, like what's happening internally. And it's the same with fasting, I used to think fasting was a punishment, and now we know that fasting is like the cheapest drug on the planet. And yeah, so anything else you have to say?
When you were doing your,
I mean, if anybody, later on has any questions, you can take my business cards. I know you can call me or can set up a meeting to talk about stuff more in details. But this, sums it up. We didn't get into like a lot of details because of time, because a lot of the topics on here separately, you can make another lecture out of it, especially the one talking about AGEs. Like, do yourself a favor and look that up. The AGEs, you'd be surprised how harmful they are, and we consume that every day and don't even know it. Advanced glycation end products.
Yeah, so when you were doing your talk, I thought of something. You were showing how, you want to lower mTOR, but protein, for example, increases mTOR.
Yep.
And you want to also build muscle, because building muscle is good as you age, and you need protein to build muscle. So how do you, I know it's just a double-edged sword, but is there any kind of optimal way you can still build your muscle and not be in like an anabolic
Well,
state?
according to David Sinclair, if you read the latest study, there was only a 5% difference. So, I trade 5% of muscles anytime for longevity. I'm not going on stage or anything, so I don't care about that no more. And I don't even eat like a bodybuilder no more. I eat like once or twice a day, and I fast a lot. So everything I do is basically for longevity purposes. People, and the paradox is, I train less, I fast more, I eat less, and I'm more ripped and look better than training 5-6 times a day and eating 5-6 times a day like I used to. Yeah, that's kind of funny. It's and I cannot tell that I lost a lot of muscles. Yeah. 5% difference. That's what is shown. Like when you take metformin that suppresses mTOR activation, then the next day you feel a little bit tired, and the study has shown those people didn't put the extra effort in the training, and that's what was a 5% difference in like muscle gaining. But then again, we don't know 100% if it was because of the suppression of mTOR or just because they were a little bit tired and didn't train as hard. So it's like, don't really know. But again, 5% is not that much. And also, like, everything in life is about having the right balance, which means, mTOR you want to have activated when you need it, but when you don't need it, have it deactivated. So that means what makes sense is if you want to do bodybuilding, but also healthy aging, on days you train, eat more protein, eat your BCAAs, which activates mTOR. But then on off days, lower the intake of amino acids, and so that the mTOR doesn't get activated. And then also, if you want to take some of these longevity pathway supplements, such as metformin, then on those days you can suppress it. And on days you train, because you're not training every day, right? Then have it activated. And that's actually the healthy balance. Anyways, it's supposed to be like a spring. Like activated when you need it, deactivated when you don't need it. And then again, when you take anabolic steroids, you eat a lot of protein or HGH or anything like that, well, then, of course, then mTOR is chronically activated, even on days where you don't need it. And again, you trade look, muscle for, lifespan. So it really depends on the person. Some people say, hey, I want to look good for like 10, 15 years. I don't care. And we see that every day, online when young fitness guys and bodybuilders, pass away in their 30s and 40s. I think it's a choice. Any more question? Yep.
I just wanted to say something on the vitamin C. So that's typically like the studies that you're referring to are typically men who have poorly functioning kidneys. But I wouldn't want people to equate that because you can also do like vitamin C IV, or you can do liposomal vitamin C. I'm a little suspect of some of the research because vitamin C is so helpful for treating cancer. And so I just wanted to bring that up because that's something I've been suspicious about and is to stem cancer. So, and then in terms of the carbon, C60, is that like a nanoparticle? Aren't you doing that as nanoparticles?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so then it would be, then the processing is different than the vitamin C. And if you wanted to, if you were concerned at all, I would look at liposomal vitamin C because I didn't really look at the nanoparticle or else the vitamin C IV.
So. Right, man, if anybody has any more questions, afterwards, feel free to take my business card. You can text me or call me at a time and, set up a call or something. And again, if anybody's interested in the supplements, you can get some here. You can also get it from online. You can use TrueNut as the discount code to get 10% off. And if anybody's interested in that longevity 6 months blueprint I put together in the last 1.5 years, which includes, it's very comprehensive. I spent a lot of time on that. And you can actually see that it works because we have that. I would never do it without a DNA test because then you will never know if it works or not. So yeah, you can also go on the website. You can actually read about everything that is entailed in that program. It's quite a bit. It's a lot of work. But if you want to set the clock back and be healthier, it is possible. We finally are at a point in life where that's possible. And then again, according to David Sinclair, he said, by the way, he said, for every year you stay alive, you get an additional 3 months, which means the way it's moving in the anti-aging field is that for each year you stay alive, you get an extra 3 months. That's how fast we're moving in that field. And he said in about 10 years, there will be a pill or series of pills available on the market that sets the clock back. In animals, it was already successful. They were able to age back, I think, 2.5 years each time. Now, the only thing they don't know yet is how many times they can do that. But so far, it looks like they were able to do it multiple times. So that means, and by the way, now that is a real birthday. Not like getting older. It's like, fuck, yeah, I'm young again. Because you actually age backwards like 2 years, every year. And that is great. And then, let's say you want to go back to like 30, your prime time, and then you just can stop it, right? And then, you age up again, like 35 or 38, and like, oh shit, I'm getting wrinkles. And you take another pill and go back again. So according to David Sinclair, we don't know really if that's possible without any complications yet. But in animals, we actually have shown that we can go multiple times back. I think, I'm not quite sure if they already started the human trial, but I know it's this year or next year they start the human trial because they do the animals right now. First they did it on cells and then animals, and the next step is humans. And so far, I know there's always concern that when you mess around with your cells, that it could cause cancer, but it actually has shown when you take NMN that it lowers it. So there were no negative side effects as of now. Of course, it could be changed. It can be changed, but so far it looks good. Yeah, so stay alive. And if we can afford it, in like 10, 15 years, we have a pill where you age backwards. Can you imagine? But it's going to be an expensive one. Thank you, guys.